Hollywood has always been a place where fantasy pays better than truth. But some stars didn't just act on screen, they performed in real life. They sold lies as lifestyles, turned deception into currency, and built empires out of smoke and mirrors. For years, fans believed their rags to riches stories, their flawless brands, their authentic charm. But the spotlight has a cruel habit. It doesn't just illuminate, it exposes. When the makeup fades and the headlines shift, what's left isn't always a hero. Sometimes, it's a con artist in couture. From fake millionaires and false activists to influencers who lied about everything, these are the 15 celebrities whose fame was built on fiction. So buckle up, because tonight, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on the biggest frauds in Hollywood history. The question is, when everything they built was a lie, what was real? 15. Armando Montelongo. Armando Montelongo wasn't just another reality TV personality, he was a phenomenon. As the star of Flip This House, he played the part of the unstoppable real estate genius, the man who could turn any crumbling property into instant profit. With a booming voice and relentless energy, he sold the dream of transformation, not just of houses, but of lives. Every word dripped with confidence. Every deal looked like magic. He became the poster child for the American hustle, from rags to riches through pure grit and secret knowledge. Viewers didn't just admire him, they worshipped him. But behind that confident grin was a different kind of blueprint, one built on manipulation, illusion, and greed. His real business wasn't flipping homes, it was flipping people's hope. Montelongo launched costly real estate success seminars, promising insider strategies that would make anyone a millionaire. Attendees paid thousands, expecting the keys to financial freedom. What they got instead were recycled cliches, high-pressure upsells, and a sinking feeling that the only person getting rich was the man with the microphone. As journalists and former students started speaking out, the empire began to crack. Lawsuits piled up, exposing how he used deceptive marketing, fake testimonials, and fear-based sales tactics. Employees revealed the truth that Montelongo's fortune came not from property deals, but from exploiting desperation. His motivational empire was built on the very thing he claimed to destroy: financial insecurity. Today, his name echoes in real estate circles not as a mentor, but a warning. He still markets success, but few are still buying the act. The man who once strutted through million-dollar mansions now stands as proof that the biggest flip he ever pulled was on his audience. In the end, Armando Montelongo didn't sell real estate, he sold the illusion of control. And when the lights went out, all that remained was the echo of his own sales pitch. 14. Nick Carter. Nick Carter was the face of innocence, the golden boy of pop. As the youngest member of the Backstreet Boys, he was a teenage heartthrob who seemed untouched by the chaos of fame. His blonde hair, angelic smile, and soft-spoken charm made him the perfect pop idol for the late 90s. To fans, he wasn't just a singer, he was the embodiment of purity in a world of glitter and noise. Parents trusted him, teens adored him, and his career glowed with the image of a man who made it without ever losing himself. But behind that carefully polished exterior, a darker story was waiting to surface. Over the years, whispers followed him, stories of violent tempers, controlling behavior, and abuse that clashed with the boy-next-door fantasy. When multiple women came forward with allegations of sexual assault, the illusion of innocence shattered. The pop world, once filled with cheers and posters of Nick's face, turned to confusion and disgust. The man who once sold love songs to millions was suddenly accused of crimes that reeked of power and manipulation. Carter denied everything, insisting on his innocence, but the damage was irreversible. Public opinion split. Some defended their childhood idol, others saw him as a symbol of the rot hiding beneath fame's glittering surface. Projects were cancelled, networks distanced themselves, and the joyful nostalgia of the Backstreet Boys era soured overnight. Even as the years passed, the accusations lingered like a shadow over every attempt at reinvention. His comeback efforts felt hollow, his music haunted by what could never be undone. The smile that once made millions of hearts race became a mask that no longer convinced anyone. Nick Carter's story isn't just about the fall of a pop star, it's about how fame, when built on image alone, can turn purity into performance, and performance into poison. 13. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres built an empire out of kindness. She was the woman who danced onto our screens every afternoon, hugged nervous guests, and made millions believe that goodness could still win in Hollywood. Her catchphrase, "Be kind to one another," became a cultural mantra, stitched onto mugs, t-shirts, and social media bios. She was the funny friend, the compassionate listener, the one celebrity who seemed immune to ego. For 2 decades, Ellen didn't just host a talk show, she hosted America's conscience. But behind the smiles and giveaways, the empire was rotting. In 2020, whispers turned into testimonies as staff members revealed the truth. Ellen's studio was a toxic, fear-driven workplace. Accounts of bullying, intimidation, and verbal abuse filled the headlines. Crew members described a hierarchy of cruelty, where kindness was a script and fear was the reality. It wasn't just about 1 or 2 bad producers, it was about the tone set from the top. The woman who preached compassion was, by many accounts, the coldest person in the room. When the scandal exploded, the fall was immediate and public. Fans felt betrayed. Co-workers spoke of years of silence. Celebrities who had once praised Ellen suddenly kept their distance. Her televised apology, tearful but calculated, failed to convince. Ratings plummeted, sponsors fled, and the network quietly announced the show's end. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, Ellen vanished from the stage she'd once ruled. Her legacy, once built on laughter and light, now feels hollow, a reminder that even kindness can be manufactured. In the end, Ellen DeGeneres didn't lose her career because she was cruel. She lost it because she convinced the world she wasn't, and the world finally saw through the act. 12. Hilaria Baldwin. For years, Hilaria Baldwin was the picture of effortless elegance, the Spanish-born yoga instructor who married Hollywood veteran Alec Baldwin and brought Mediterranean flair to American celebrity life. On talk shows, she spoke with a lilting accent, sprinkled in Spanish phrases, and told stories of her upbringing in Mallorca. Her brand was built on authenticity, the grounded, multicultural mother of 5, who somehow balanced glamour with mindfulness. To millions online, she wasn't just a Baldwin, she was a lifestyle. But in late 2020, that lifestyle began to collapse. Internet sleuths uncovered something strange. Hilaria wasn't Spanish at all. Her real name was Hillary Thomas, born and raised in Boston to American parents with no Spanish roots. Old interviews resurfaced, showing her accent mysteriously appearing and disappearing. A viral clip of her asking, "How you say in English, cucumber?" became the punchline of a global joke. The more she tried to explain, the worse it got. What had been presented as cultural pride was suddenly exposed as cultural theft. Her entire public persona, her accent, her heritage, her backstory was a carefully constructed fantasy designed to make her stand out in an industry addicted to identity. Brands cut ties, fans unfollowed, and the Baldwin family faced an avalanche of ridicule. Even Alec, known for his temper, couldn't shield her from the truth that everyone now saw. She had spent years living inside a performance. Hilaria claimed she simply grew up between 2 cultures, but the internet wasn't buying it. Her accent faded, her credibility vanished, and her Instagram empire turned into a museum of self-delusion. In the end, she didn't just lose the accent, she lost the illusion. And for someone who built fame on authenticity, there's no recovery from being caught pretending to be someone else. 11. Rachel Hollis. Rachel Hollis built a billion-dollar brand out of one simple promise. You can have it all if you work hard enough. Her book, Girl, Wash Your Face, became a manifesto for millions of women chasing empowerment. She called herself a small-town nobody, who hustled her way to the top through grit, tears, and self-belief. Her words filled arenas. Her Instagram overflowed with glossy perfection, barefoot kids, motivational quotes, and curated chaos. She was the authentic influencer, the queen of self-made success, the friend who made ambition feel holy. But authenticity, as it turned out, was her greatest fiction. Beneath the inspirational mantras and filtered smiles was a woman who had crafted not a message, but a myth. Hollis's rags to riches tale was built on privilege. Her husband was a Disney executive, her company fueled by insider access and wealth. Worse, her original insights were often copied, sometimes word for word, from other writers. The internet began noticing patterns: stolen quotes, exaggerated hardships, and a tone that treated relatability like a product. Then came the viral implosion. In a TikTok meant to inspire, Hollis compared herself to Harriet Tubman and Marie Curie, declaring she didn't want to be relatable. The backlash was instant and savage. Followers who had once cheered her now saw arrogance hiding behind faux humility. Book deals vanished, her company shrank, and her brand built on empowerment became a case study in hypocrisy. Today, Rachel Hollis still posts, still preaches, still sells motivation. But the magic is gone. Her smile feels rehearsed, her optimism hollow, her empire reduced to a cautionary tale about believing your own marketing. She wanted to inspire women to rise, but in the end, she showed how easy it is to fall when your foundation is built on performance, not truth. 10. Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian sold the internet a fantasy wealth, women, and invincibility. On Instagram, he was the self-proclaimed king of Instagram, surrounded by models, holding stacks of cash, lighting cigars on yachts, and firing machine guns in the desert. He claimed to be a poker genius who turned a small stake into a multi-million-dollar fortune. His life was an endless blur of champagne, private jets, and luxury villas, the dream every young man thought he wanted. To millions of followers, Bilzerian wasn't a man. He was a brand, a lifestyle, an ideal of untouchable success. But like most fantasies, it was all borrowed light. Investigations revealed that Dan's supposed poker empire was built not on skill, but on inheritance money funneled from his father's shady hedge fund fortune. His poker wins were mostly myths. Insiders whispered that he lost more than he ever made. His claims of Navy SEAL training turned out to be false. He never completed the program. And the company that supposedly legitimized his wealth, Ignite, a cannabis and lifestyle brand, was exposed for bleeding cash. Leaked financial reports showed that the company paid for his extravagant lifestyle. The jets, the girls, the parties, all written off as marketing. When employees spoke out, the facade crumbled. Ignite's investors fled, and Bilzerian's empire began to resemble a hollow shell, a monument to excess without achievement. Yet even in disgrace, he kept posting, clinging to the illusion that attention equals relevance. Today, the once mythical king of Instagram looks less like a mogul and more like a relic, a man trapped in the persona he created, still performing for a crowd that stopped believing. Dan Bilzerian promised the world that success could be bought, flexed, and photographed. But when the filters faded, the only thing left behind was the silence of a bluff finally called. 9. Kim Zolciak-Biermann. Kim Zolciak-Biermann was the embodiment of Bravo TV excess, a blonde bombshell with a champagne laugh, endless wigs, and an appetite for luxury that could fill an entire season of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Viewers adored her unapologetic glamour, her don't-be-tardy attitude, and her whirlwind romance with NFL player Kroy Biermann. She sold herself as a woman who'd built her dream life from scratch: private jets, designer handbags, and a sprawling Georgia mansion nicknamed Versailles. To fans, Kim wasn't just reality royalty, she was proof that confidence and contour could conquer the world. But the fairy tale was financed by fantasy. Behind the Instagram filters and designer closets lay a storm of debt and denial. Reports surfaced of unpaid taxes, lawsuits from credit card companies, and mounting liens from the IRS. The mansion she flaunted so proudly was sliding toward foreclosure, not once but repeatedly. Every luxury car, every Cartier bracelet became a question mark: how much was real and how much was borrowed. Her spin-off shows collapsed, her businesses from skincare to swimwear fizzled, and her marriage, once her brand's centerpiece, began to unravel publicly. The woman who once toasted to eternal success was suddenly live-streaming desperate sales of used handbags just to keep up appearances. The same fans who once laughed with her now watched in disbelief as the empire of glam turned into a cautionary tale of overindulgence. Kim Zolciak-Biermann spent years performing wealth, and for a while the world believed it. But reality television has a cruel sense of irony. When the cameras stop, reality always returns. She built her fame on luxury, but in the end, all she owned was the illusion of it. 8. James Frey. James Frey was supposed to be the comeback story America needed. His memoir, A Million Little Pieces, painted him as the man who had stared into the abyss of addiction and crawled out through sheer willpower. The book's raw, visceral tone made readers weep and cheer. It wasn't polished literature, it was pain on paper. Oprah Winfrey called it inspirational, catapulting him from obscure writer to cultural icon overnight. For a while, Frey wasn't just an author, he was living proof that redemption sells. But the truth behind his masterpiece was fiction. In 2006, an investigation by the Smoking Gun exposed that Frey had fabricated much of his story: arrests that never happened, jail time that was imaginary, and scenes of violence and despair that belonged more to Hollywood than real life. His memoir, marketed as brutally honest, was actually a carefully crafted lie, designed to manipulate emotion and profit from it. When the truth surfaced, it was devastating. Oprah summoned him back onto her show, but this time it wasn't for celebration, it was a reckoning. In front of millions, she confronted him for betraying his readers, for selling false pain as truth. Frey mumbled apologies, but it was too late. The literary world turned its back, publishers panicked, and his name became shorthand for betrayal in nonfiction. Years later, he tried to reinvent himself as a novelist and art entrepreneur, but his credibility never recovered. His talent for storytelling couldn't erase the memory of deception. James Frey's tragedy wasn't that he lied, it's that he could have told the truth and still mattered. But he wanted greatness faster than honesty could deliver it. In the end, his biggest fiction wasn't his book, it was himself. 7. Billy McFarland. Billy McFarland had everything a modern con artist needs: charisma, money, and the audacity to dream too big to question. In 2017, he promised to deliver the ultimate luxury event, Fyre Festival, an exclusive music festival set on a private Bahamian island once owned by Pablo Escobar. The pitch was perfect: a paradise of sun, celebrities, and private jets, promoted by the world's top influencers and supermodels. Tickets sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and the glossy promo videos looked like heaven curated for Instagram. For a brief moment, Billy wasn't just a businessman. He was the oracle of millennial luxury. But when the guests arrived, the illusion burst like a cheap champagne bubble. There were no villas, no gourmet meals, no famous artists, just soaking wet disaster tents, cheese sandwiches, and chaos. Stranded attendees filmed the nightmare, turning what was supposed to be the most glamorous weekend on Earth into one of the internet's greatest jokes. Behind the scenes, McFarland's finances were collapsing, his investors were duped, and his staff had been working under impossible lies. Investigators soon discovered the truth. Fyre wasn't a failure, it was fraud. Billy had forged documents, falsified wire transfers, and used investor funds to fuel his own luxury lifestyle. In 2018, he was sentenced to prison for massive fraud, his name forever linked to one of the most spectacular scams of the decade. Even from behind bars, Billy couldn't give up the performance. Upon release, he teased Fyre Festival 2 as if failure had become his brand. Billy McFarland didn't just con investors, He conned a generation addicted to image. His story is the perfect mirror for modern fame. Shiny, empty, and willing to burn the world just to trend for one more day. 6. Lori Loughlin. For decades, Lori Loughlin was Hollywood's trusted face of virtue, the sweet, soft-spoken Aunt Becky from Full House, the woman who embodied decency, family values, and gentle charm. She built her brand on being wholesome, unproblematic, and adored. Even as her peers drifted into scandal, Lori stayed spotless. She was proof that you could have success, wealth, and integrity all at once, or so it seemed. Then came 2019, the year the illusion shattered. When the college admissions scandal broke, Lori's name was front and center. Prosecutors revealed she and her husband, fashion designer Massimo Giannulli, had paid $500,000 in bribes to secure their daughter's admission into the University of Southern California. The plan was as arrogant as it was absurd: falsified photos, fake athletic resumes, and backdoor deals dressed as donations. The beloved sitcom mom had become a real-life symbol of privilege gone rotten. The backlash was instant. Hollywood, once her safe home, exiled her overnight. Netflix dropped her, Hallmark erased her from reruns, and the same fans who grew up watching her teach life lessons now watched her walk into court in designer suits. Lori's tearful apology came too late. The country had already decided what she represented: the entitlement of the wealthy pretending to play fair. After serving a brief prison sentence, she tried to rebuild, quietly returning to low-profile TV projects. But her name no longer stands for warmth, it stands for corruption with a smile. Lori Loughlin's fall wasn't just about a college scam. It was about a culture obsessed with image, where even the kindest faces can mask entitlement. She once played the mother who taught honesty and humility, only to become the cautionary tale her show never dared to film. 5. Anna Delvey, Anna Sorokin. Anna Delvey wasn't just pretending to be rich, she was pretending to be royalty. Draped in designer clothes and dripping with confidence, she infiltrated New York's most exclusive circles under the guise of a mysterious German heiress with a $60 million trust fund. She stayed in five-star hotels without paying a cent, ordered champagne she couldn't afford, and dropped the names of bankers, artists, and CEOs like she was born among them. Everyone believed her because she acted like disbelief was offensive. In a city built on ambition and illusion, Anna played both better than anyone. Her con was pure performance art. She convinced financial institutions to lend her money for a luxury arts foundation that didn't exist. She lived off temporary loans from friends who assumed reimbursement was inevitable. Every dinner, every Instagram post, every private jet flight was part of the act. But when the checks stopped clearing, the truth emerged. The heiress was a girl from a small Russian town, raised in an ordinary family that had emigrated to Germany. She wasn't wealthy, just audacious. When journalist Jessica Pressler exposed her story, New York turned on her overnight. Hotels pressed charges, her friends went public with their humiliation, and prosecutors built a case that read like a screenplay. Even then, Anna refused to drop the mask. She treated her trial like a runway, wearing designer outfits and smirking at photographers. Convicted of grand larceny, she served time but left prison with what she always wanted: fame. Netflix dramatized her life. Influencers debated whether she was villain or visionary, and Anna leaned into the chaos, still calling herself an icon. In the end, she didn't just scam the rich, she scammed culture itself. In an age obsessed with image, Anna Delvey proved that the most valuable currency isn't money, it's belief. 4. Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer was bred for stardom. With matinee idol looks, a famous family name, and the kind of composure that made him seem untouchable, he was Hollywood's chosen prince. Critics called him the next great leading man after The Social Network and Call Me by Your Name, a blend of sophistication and danger, old-school charm, wrapped in modern polish. He played perfect men on screen because, to most people, he was one in real life. Then the facade cracked. In 2021, screenshots began surfacing messages allegedly from Hammer describing violent sexual fantasies, domination, and even cannibalism. The internet exploded. At first, fans dismissed them as fabrications too grotesque to be true. But more women stepped forward, each with disturbingly similar stories of manipulation, emotional abuse, and psychological control. What had seemed like charisma suddenly looked like coercion. The prince had turned into a predator. Hollywood moved fast. Studios dropped him, agencies cut ties, and projects evaporated overnight. The man who had walked red carpets in designer suits was now holed up in the Cayman Islands, reportedly selling timeshares to survive. Journalists began digging into his lineage, revealing a family history riddled with wealth, corruption, and scandal. Army wasn't an anomaly, he was an inheritance. A dynasty of darkness dressed up as power and privilege. He denied the allegations, calling them vicious and false, but the damage had already rooted itself in the culture. Hammer's downfall became a symbol of how entitlement can hide behind beauty and how easily charm can be weaponized. Today, his name lingers like a ghost in every conversation about Hollywood hypocrisy, a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide in shadows. They smile, they charm, and they walk into the spotlight already wearing their disguise. 3. Rachel Dolezal. Rachel Dolezal built her career on identity, and she built that identity on a lie. As the head of the NAACP chapter in Spokane, Washington, she presented herself as a proud black woman, a scholar of African culture, and a tireless advocate for racial justice. Her voice carried conviction, her words inspired. She braided her hair, darkened her skin, and spoke of growing up under the shadow of racial struggle. To those who didn't know her past, she seemed authentic, even admirable. She taught African studies at a university and lectured about the black experience, all while living a carefully constructed illusion. But in 2015, the illusion cracked live on camera. During a television interview, a reporter asked a question that should have been simple: "Are you African American?" Rachel froze. Her stunned pause and awkward deflection went viral. Within days, the truth surfaced: she was born to white parents in Montana, with no African ancestry whatsoever. The woman who had spent years advocating for racial authenticity had spent just as long performing it. The fallout was explosive. Her parents released childhood photos showing a pale, freckled girl with blonde hair. Former colleagues expressed disbelief, and the NAACP quickly distanced itself. The story dominated headlines worldwide, igniting debates about race, identity, and appropriation. Dolezal defended herself, claiming she identified as black, but the world wasn't buying it. To many, her actions weren't self-expression, they were theft. Rachel lost her job, her credibility, and her name became a cultural punchline. She tried to reinvent herself under a new one, Nkechi Diallo, but her attempts only deepened the absurdity. Her story stands as one of the strangest chapters in modern America, a cautionary tale about the seduction of identity and the danger of confusing empathy with impersonation. Rachel Dolezal didn't just cross a line, she erased it, and the world will never stop reminding her where it once stood. 2. Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes was once Silicon Valley's golden girl, the brilliant young woman who dropped out of Stanford to revolutionize medicine. She spoke in a deliberate baritone voice, wore the same black turtleneck every day, and quoted Steve Jobs like scripture. Her company, Theranos, promised to change healthcare forever. One tiny drop of blood, hundreds of tests, instant results. Investors lined up. Politicians praised her. Forbes named her the world's youngest, self-made female billionaire. In a culture obsessed with disruption, she was the ultimate dream, genius, beauty, and moral purpose all in one. But her invention didn't work. The miracle machine, the heart of her empire, was pure fiction. Behind the glass walls and tight-lipped employees was a fortress of lies. Tests failed, data was falsified, and patients received dangerously inaccurate results. Employees who questioned her were silenced or fired, and investors were fed staged demonstrations designed to keep the money flowing. Holmes didn't just bend the truth, she industrialized it, transforming deception into a billion-dollar brand. When the Wall Street Journal journalist John Carreyrou began digging, the facade started to crumble. Whistleblowers confirmed what Holmes had always denied. Theranos wasn't a medical revolution, it was a mirage. Lawsuits followed. The government stepped in. In 2022, Holmes was convicted of massive fraud, her calm composure finally breaking as she faced prison. Even now, she insists her intentions were pure, that she only wanted to help humanity. But history doesn't remember intentions, it remembers impact. The woman once compared to Jobs is now compared to con artists. Elizabeth Holmes didn't just destroy a company, she shattered the illusion of innovation itself. In her black turtleneck, she didn't look like a visionary. She looked like the perfect disguise for a lie too big to believe. 1. Jussie Smollett. For a while, Jussie Smollett was more than just a television star, he was a symbol. His breakout role on Empire made him a face of talent, resilience, and representation in Hollywood. He stood for progress, for visibility, for pride. Fans saw him as brave and authentic, a man who turned his platform into purpose. He wasn't just loved, he was trusted. And that trust would become the very thing he destroyed. In January 2019, Smollett claimed he had been attacked on a freezing Chicago night by two masked men shouting racist and homophobic slurs. The story was horrific. A hate crime in modern America, committed against a black gay actor. Politicians spoke out. Celebrities rallied in his defense. The nation mourned his pain. For days, Jussie was celebrated as a survivor who refused to be silenced. But then, the details began to unravel. Police investigations revealed that the attackers were two brothers who knew Smollett personally, men he had paid to stage the assault. Surveillance footage, text messages, and receipts painted a damning picture. The hate crime had been choreographed by its victim. He had written his own script and performed it for the world. The motive, prosecutors said, was fame, a desperate bid for relevance in a cutthroat industry. When the truth came out, the backlash was volcanic. He went from hero to pariah overnight. The cast of Empire turned away, producers cut his role, and the public, once sympathetic, now seethed with anger. His tearful courtroom statements couldn't undo the betrayal. Today, Jussie Smollett's name has become shorthand for self-destruction, a cautionary tale of what happens when activism becomes performance. He wanted to expose hate, but ended up exposing himself, proof that in Hollywood, even morality can be staged if the lighting's right. In Hollywood, image is everything, but truth always finds the cracks. These 15 stories aren't just about lies, they're about obsession. The obsession with fame, perfection, validation, and the belief that if the performance is convincing enough, reality will never catch up, but it always does. From tech empires built on fake science to socialites who crafted entire lives from fantasy, each of these stars learned the same lesson. The spotlight doesn't forgive, it magnifies. It turns whispers into headlines, secrets into documentaries, and masks into mirrors. What's chilling isn't how they lied, it's how easily we believed them. We wanted to. We wanted heroes, prodigies, survivors. We wanted the illusion to be real because truth is never as glamorous. But beneath the filters, the turtlenecks, the smiles, and the staged humility, the truth was always waiting, patient and merciless. So the next time Hollywood sells you a story that seems too perfect, remember this list. Behind every flawless image might be another Armie, another Ellen, another Jussie, another fraud waiting for the curtain to fall. Because in the end, the one thing Hollywood can't fake is the truth.